Hey folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from for this new episode of the Rise Up Radio. And today I have a very special guest with me today, and his name is Mike Thielman. Mike, very warm welcome to you on the Rise Up Radio today.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Folks, Mike is the former CHRO at PepsiCo with a career spanning across Diageo and PepsiCo, across total rewards, performance, and executive leadership. But the surprise, he's actually originally trained as a theoretical physicist and actuarial science. Mike, please walk us through this journey of being a theoretical physicist to actuarial science and then being in HR. That's a very new combination I've heard.
I literally should record this on my own because I've given this conversation many times. I've kind of picked everything in my life based on people. I
Hmm.
picked the teams I wanted to play on when I was in high school and even before then. I picked the college I wanted to go to. I met the head of the physics department and I thought this guy is the best. I'm going to be a physicist, right? I didn't even know what it meant at the
No.
time. Um, and so I did that. I did 4 years of college in a lot of math and a lot of physics.
Hmm. Hmm.
I studied abroad in Austria
Hmm.
for a spring semester, which was
Okay.
great. I learned
Hmm.
to love art history. And then I was going to go to engineering school, and I kind of muffed it up. I didn't know that they were going to send me the offer for a full ride
Hmm.
when I was in Salzburg, and I missed the deadline, and it was a little bit of
Okay.
drama, but it was all fine. And so I decided to go, get my master's in physics and theoretical physics and such at Nebraska. And the reason I picked
Hmm.
Nebraska is because my undergrad professor's brother was the head of the department there. Right. And I'm so like,
Wow. Okay.
so, and so while I was there, I was starting to figure out after my first year, because you finish your classes kind of in your first year, if you've got, all the background and such, and you basically are writing papers and things like that.
Yeah.
And I spoke to my undergrad's brother who was an actuary, and I didn't know what I'd never heard of actuaries at that time.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
he said, "You'd be great at it. You get the right background, you got the right math skills. You take these tests. The first five tests are going to be easy for you." Da 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 da. So I started getting interviewed for these jobs when I was still in grad school, and I
Hmm.
started at what was then Towers Perrin. It's now totally different, and right,
Yeah.
they've all kind of matched up together. And so I started as an actuary, and the way I got into HR was I got asked by one of the partners in the exec comp area to help them with a project for Burger King, and they wanted to
Hmm.
understand how they were paying people over the last 5 years by country, by store.
Hmm.
And so that was the first time I had the big compact computer, right? The
Yep.
computer you could carry home that weighed about 40
Right.
pounds. And so I did all the work on that, and he asked me to go down there. And when we got down there and got started with the C-suite in a boardroom, he
Hmm.
didn't understand the math, and so he asked me to do the whole presentation. I did, and
Hmm.
the next day, their head of HR called me and said, "We'd like you to come work for us." And I didn't know what that meant. I've said, "Hey, you got to call George. George will he determines my work, not me." He goes, "No,
Yeah.
quit there. Come work for us. We want you to have compensation for us." So that's how I got into HR, and I just followed great people to Diageo, then to PepsiCo and Yum, and then to Penny's. Then I took a 5 year hiatus, and then Albertsons for the last 6.5 years.
Hmm. Awesome. Started with compensation and your career span across performance, compensation, and rewards. What do you think of performance today, Mike, in organizations?
I think the historic model of at the end of the year writing a review,
Hmm.
giving people a review, tweaking their merit increase up 50 basis points or down 50 basis points, I think it doesn't work.
Hmm.
I don't think it's adding any value. I
Hmm.
think there are better ways to do it. I think feedback should be, continual.
Hmm.
I've gotten involved with a company called Encompass Labs that
Hmm.
has a platform that helps
Hmm.
in this space in a big way. But I don't think people learn each March 1st when they get their performance
Hmm.
appraisal from
Hmm.
something they did a year earlier, right?
Yeah.
And so, what I'd love to see happen is a better formatic way to do it. that is more frequent,
Hmm.
and I also say, and put some of the onus on the employee to ask for feedback, right?
Yeah.
I can tell you my team got a lot of feedback from me, right? Because
Hmm.
that's the way
Hmm.
I grew. I grew by getting
Hmm.
feedback. Like I messed a lot
Hmm.
of stuff up in my career, and I got feedback
Yeah.
on it, and I could make new turns. And I think it's just so important. My daughter's, 6 years into her career. She did 4 years at a department store, in the apparel side, and then she went to
Hmm.
grad school,
Hmm.
and now she's working for a big pet food business.
Hmm.
And I talked to her the other day. I talk to her every day, but she said, I don't get any good feedback from anybody. I'm like, go
Yeah.
ask them. Just go
Hmm.
ask your boss, and if your boss won't give it to you, go ask your boss's boss. Like, go
Yeah.
ask them.
Hmm.
So I think it's not an element that's as embedded in ways of working as it
Right.
should be.
Right.
And
Right.
that's something I want to help fix for America if I can.
Awesome. So, Mike, let's go back, right? Across your entire career, you would have gone through systems where you have put these performance systems and ran these performance systems. When was that when you started realizing that, hey, you know what, this is not working, or this is not the right system, or we need to think about performance and feedback separately and cut it out of this annual cycle and make it more continuous?
Probably when I took my first C-suite job at Penny's.
Hmm. Okay.
It was like fill out the form day,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I go talk to people when I got there with my team, and I said, what was the feedback you've received in your job? And they're like, oh, rounding error kind of stuff, like
Hmm.
rounding error kind
Hmm.
of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, but it wasn't the big things, right? If you're going to be a VP in a company, you got to be capable of making big changes to big things.
Yeah.
And my team there was making small changes to small things,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And it required some restructuring of how work got done and who did what and who were the
Hmm.
players on the team and et cetera.
Hmm.
But it was much more about set aside the process. It was
Hmm.
more the way I lead, and the way I lead is
Hmm.
heavily with feedback. My kids will
Hmm.
tell you that.
Right. So when you start looking back at the systems, Mike, what do you think that is fundamentally broken? Is it just the frequency of the feedback, or is it the entire, what do you say, the entire philosophy behind, giving feedback and measuring performance across the year? And why is that, it's not more continual? Is it only that the
Yeah.
organization or the managers are not giving it, or like you said, even employees are not seeking it, right? So where is the gap, or is it both-sided?
Let me start from the top and work down.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is, in a C-suite job, you don't get your hands as dirty in the stuff you want to work on,
Great.
right? You just don't. You're helping manage a company that's, Albertsons was $85 billion, 300,000
Yeah.
people spread all over the place, right? Um, and so you don't get as many at bats of seeing people, in play, right? And
Hmm.
so you're talking to this person to get feedback to give to this person, et cetera. And I think what matters is, how do you give feedback when people are doing big projects?
Hmm.
And to me, big projects could be, hey, we implemented Oracle, right? That was a multi-year project, but we're
Hmm.
doing it in phases. Those people should
Yeah.
be getting feedback every 6 or 8 weeks on those
Hmm.
phases, right?
Hmm.
And we're standing up a new comp program. We've changed our benefits plans. We went through a whole lot of stuff like that in my
Hmm.
time at
Hmm.
Albertsons.
Hmm.
And I always wanted those people to get feedback on, what they did well, what they could work on. And usually it's only one thing. I don't want to go give somebody, hey, you got 6 things you got to work on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I put these folks in front of the board, right? I had them do presentations to the board. I said,
Yep.
you need to learn how to do this. I was giving presentations to the board when I was in a company's job. You got to be
Hmm.
able to do it. And so it was a little scary at first, but nobody died or anything like that. They were all
Yeah.
fine, and off they went. And so I think breaking it down, where instead of looking at the calendar saying when is annual feedback day, you
Yeah.
kind of say, hey, this person needs some feedback. They're either doing really
Right.
well and I want them to get feedback that's going to accelerate them to the next level,
Right.
or this
Right.
person's kind of stalled out and they seem a little lost. They need some feedback to get their feet back under them so they can move forward.
Right. So in a way, it's basically what you're hinting towards is the managers have to be on always on the lookout for opportunities where they can actually proactively give feedback, both corrective as well as the good feedback piece of it, isn't it?
I think that's their core job.
Hmm.
I mean, think about it. When you're in the C suite, you're not generating a whole bunch of work that you're doing on your own. I mean, a few things here
Yep.
for the board I would do and CEO succession and stuff like that. But most of it is you're managing things and making decisions on, are we going left,
Yep.
right, straight, backwards, up, down, whatever. And so you need people that can take on these big, projects, right? Or
Yep.
big verticals to actually keep them moving in the right direction and knowing the right direction to move in,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
so that comes with some confidence, but it comes with a confidence in those people, but also it comes with helping them make sure they're
Correct.
constantly looking at the direction of which they're leading us.
Right, right. And you've been part of a lot of C-suite conversations, and you've experienced feedback at the executive level. And I remember a pre-call discussion, and you were mentioning that some of the best feedback that you got was in the C-suite. So why don't you take us through that? What was that feedback, or not exactly the feedback, but how did it make a difference to you as an individual and as a performer in the organization?
You know, I've worked for, three really great CEOs, three really great CEOs.
Hmm,
David Novak, Mike Allman, and Vivek Shankaran.
hmm,
And, one of the things that all three wanted to have was a feedback rich environment, right? Because
hmm,
without it,
hmm.
you know, you can only go as far in a company as your talent can take you.
Right, right.
And if your talent's not growing, the company's
Hmm,
probably not going to grow, right?
right.
And so I got really good feedback. We do it usually every 6 months. Or I'd go have lunch or dinner with one of them and say, all right, give me two things that I can work on, like me work
Hmm,
on, not projects, me. What can I work on
hmm.
about me? And sometimes it was pace. I would hear, sometimes you're going too fast, sometimes you're going too slow. It's hard to figure out in a
Yeah.
big company, where slow and fast intersect, right? Um, it was, you've made a lot of change on your team. Can they handle all the change? Right.
Hmm.
You got a lot of new people, right? Because Albertsons, I had a lot of new people on my team, a lot of people from the outside and a lot of people from the inside that I moved around.
Hmm.
And, so they can kind of see it and smell it, right? When
Hmm.
sometimes, I could be getting lost in kind of the day-to-day stuff right away.
Right.
So
Right.
really helpful feedback, right? Some of it has been, hey, spend more time with the board,
Hmm.
right? Or the comp committee, get them prepped
Hmm.
better so
Hmm.
that when they come
Hmm.
into a
Hmm.
meeting, none of it is mystery to
Right.
them.
Right.
And so I just would start calling comp committee members and saying, we're going to be doing this at the next board meeting in 6 weeks. Can I spend
Yeah.
20 minutes with you getting you, acclimated?
Up to speed. Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned that, a leader and a manager's core job is to give feedback. On the other hand, it's also to develop and coach the team members. And there's a very, close connection between giving feedback just for the sake of giving feedback and then giving feedback for the purpose of developing somebody so that, they actually improve performance. And you're talking about feedback and coaching and how they run parallel. So what are your thoughts on that? How does coaching go hand in hand with feedback?
I personally believe your job as a leader is to develop other people. That
Yeah.
that should be 80 or 90% of your job, right?
Right.
Otherwise, you shouldn't be the leader, right?
Yeah.
It's like being the coach of a professional sport and never
Hmm.
giving feedback to your quarterback, your receiver, your
Hmm.
your best hitter, your best pitcher. That's your job. That's the
Hmm.
vast majority of your job is to put the team together and help them be better at what they do. And the sum is greater than the pieces, right? And so that's why I think it's so important. And I don't think we're doing it well in America. I just
Yeah.
don't. I don't think we're doing it well in America. And I think there's a lot of room there to make it work a lot better than it does
Hmm.
today.
Hmm. Hmm.
So like we built a program and we've run it. I don't know, we ran it in what year? 2023?
Okay.
And we started with the C-suite, and we
Hmm.
probably took, I don't know, 300, 400 people through it, leaders,
Wow.
senior leaders.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
And it was really to develop their skills and their awareness more than anything else. It's not the most
Right.
complex program you're ever going to do. We do
Right.
things like speed feedback, right? You're going to
Hmm.
sit, you're going to be in a group of people,
Hmm.
and you're going to be sitting in a chair,
Hmm.
and you got 60 seconds to give the person across the table
Hmm. Hmm.
feedback. And then you're going to move around, and you're going to end up on the
Hmm.
other side of the table, and somebody's going to give you
Hmm.
60 seconds of feedback.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's amazing what you can learn in 60 seconds from somebody.
Correct.
60
Correct.
seconds.
Yeah. Well, impactful feedback doesn't need hours and hours, right? It actually has to
No,
be very
no. Yeah.
specific.
You don't need an
Yeah.
8-page document to learn something.
Not at
Yeah.
all. Not at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, there's always been a critic around, real-time feedback. There's always been a critic around, how do you continuously keep giving feedback? But it's very difficult to measure that feedback and then, collectively measure an individual's performance based on that. Technology plays a huge role here, right? Because without being able to record these common instances of feedback that happen anecdotally during the workday, during the job,
Yeah.
it becomes very difficult. How do you start gathering all this data and start measuring or, measuring up people and their performances?
Yeah. It's,
Or
I
it
mean,
should
I
not be
tend to
done as
look
well. I
at,
mean, what's your thought? I mean, maybe you could say
no,
that, it's not be.
I think there should be some way to assess people. I just don't think trying to assess people on an annual basis is working. I
Hmm,
just don't think it's worked in
hmm,
maybe forever. I don't know. I don't
hmm,
wasn't here for
hmm.
forever, but I just think if you bring people in and share feedback with them that's actionable. I can't say to somebody, hey, you'd be really good if you could get in a spacecraft and go to the moon. That's not really
Hmm,
helpful, right?
hmm, hmm, hmm.
Um, unless they're an astronaut, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think there's a role for feedback and measured feedback, but
Hmm,
I think you need to do it and document it more frequently. And I'm not talking about
hmm.
giving people, 12 performance appraisals in a year. I'm just talking about putting it on a piece of paper
Yeah.
and saying, here was the conversation we had, right?
Yeah.
Let's check back in 6 weeks on
Hmm,
how you're doing on this instance, on this approach that you take to running
hmm,
a team. It
hmm,
doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
hmm. What do you think is a
I'm I'm
challenge
not
that
I'm
mostly
not
people
so I'm not
face?
solved. Here's what I'm not solving for. I'm not solving for the merit increase.
Yeah,
That's not what I'm
I
solving
get
for.
that.
I'm
Yeah,
solving
yeah.
for the human becomes better at what they're doing and making bigger impact on
Right,
others. That's what I'm solving
right,
for.
right, right. So for me, whenever I talk to people about continuous feedback, it's great. People definitely want to move to that paradigm, but always organizations hit a practical method to be able to implement, which is, if managers keep giving feedback, then when do they do their job? And like you said, not many people realize that, 90% of their job is to do this. But at the end of the day, they do have other tasks as well. And most of the times, operational issues take precedence over the strategic issues, which are, developing people and building your team, giving feedback,
Which
coaching them,
which
etc.,
says to
etc.
me they will continue to have more and more operational issues if they don't develop their team.
It's a
Right? They're
recursive
digging their
cycle.
own hole. I mean, the cycle is they're digging their own hole.
So, what can organizations do differently, Mike, in this case? What can they do differently?
I would commit to how you're going to do feedback, not in a performance appraisal
Hmm.
structure, right?
Yeah,
And go play with it a little bit. Find the rhythm
yeah,
in your company that makes sense, right? I had my own rhythm. Other people and other
yeah,
C-suite leaders had their own rhythm. Division presidents that run big businesses for
yeah,
us had their own rhythm. But find your way of doing it in a way that you're putting your people first, right?
hmm.
And if you're putting your people first to develop them,
Hmm.
they'll stay with you a long time and they'll appreciate
Hmm.
the feedback.
Hmm.
And if the feedback is kind, not
Hmm.
not not easy, but kind,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So that you're not, putting in, making it feel like they're stupid or they did something
Yeah,
wrong. You're kind. You're that mentor. with them. You might be their
Yeah.
boss, but you're that mentor for them.
Right.
I grew in HR. I knew nothing about HR when I got into HR. I
Hmm.
knew nothing,
Hmm.
right? I just worked for great people. That's my whole career is I've worked for great people. That is my career.
Well,
I've
you
never taken
definitely
an
have been
HR
lucky for
class.
sure because you pick people before you pick the career choices.
Yeah, I've never taken an HR class, but I've taught a bunch of them, right?
Yeah.
And that is all because of people. It's not because of systems or,
Right. Right.
performance management or anything else. It's about I learned from people. They threw me into things I shouldn't have been doing and they
Yeah.
coached me through it.
Awesome. Cool. Mike, I have one last directional question, right? And we need to address the elephant in the room, which is the big talk of today, AI, right? Do you see AI revolutionizing performance feedback and performance appraisals in any way, shape, and form?
Yeah, I talked about this company, Encompass Labs. They're using AI for it. I think
Hmm.
AI is going to make a lot of things easier. If you just think about
Hmm.
every year you go do open enrollment, an AI agent,
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
implemented one at Albertsons to make it easier for
Hmm.
you to do your selections and things like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think AI is going to make impact on it. I think you can
Hmm.
also use an AI agent to practice, right?
Hmm.
Hey, I got to give
Hmm.
feedback to this person. I've
Yeah.
not known them that long, or
Yeah.
historically they've been a little bit rough to kind of give feedback to.
Right.
How do I practice on that? And
Right.
there are tools you can practice on.
Hmm.
So I just think it's all about personal growth, right?
Hmm.
And without feedback, you don't really grow, right?
Hmm.
That's the nutrient that's coming to you is
Right.
feedback, right? Assuming you
Right.
accept it and you go work on it, right? You'll
Hmm.
grow. If you don't accept it and you don't work on it, you're not going to grow.
Hmm. So in the end, organizations can actually put guidelines in place and enable people with the right tool to be able to learn these skills and become better at it so that they can manage the teams better in a nutshell.
Absolutely. I mean, these are not complicated tools. They're just
Yeah,
not. They're not
correct.
complicated tools,
Correct.
right? It's how do you do the nudges to give people feedback?
Hmm.
And then how do you then think about what you want them to get out of their role they're doing
Hmm.
today? And I move people
Hmm.
around a lot, right? I move
Hmm.
people around a lot because I got moved around a lot, and your learning goes vertical when you move around, especially if
Hmm.
you don't know what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's really important for talent development, probably at most levels.
Hmm.
At
Hmm.
most levels, I think that's important.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I had fun having this conversation with you, Mike, today. Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you,
your thoughts.
thank you for the questions. Good questions.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your insights with our audience. I'm sure they're going to love it.
Thank you. Thanks for the time today.
All right, folks, there you have it. This is Mike Thielmann, and this is Ashish signing off from this episode. And I'll see you with a new episode with a new guest on the Rise Up Radio. Till then, you folks be safe and take care. Bye bye.